It's the day after the No Kings protest. So for all of you people that showed up to the protest, I have a couple questions I need to ask. 1. Is Trump still in office? I see. 2. Did you stop any immigrants from being deported? I see. So let's take a moment to reflect on the fact that you did nothing.
Hello amazing viewer, delighted to have you once more at Comfort for Life. You are new here. If I bring to you compilation of TikTok and Red Note videos for educational purposes, why don't you subscribe? And to my returning viewers, I love and appreciate this. Thank you so much for being here. I'm back again with another compilation. This video compiles the outcome of the No Kings protest, should I say the analysis of the No Kings protest. And when I was young, I learned that democracy was the power of the people, by the people, and for the people. Pouvoir du peuple, par le peuple, pour le peuple. And I don't recall the number of times they made us repeat that definition until it sank. But was it ever a reality for us? The question remains. And I couldn't have thought of a better name for the protest, than what they came up with. Because when I saw No Kings protest, it literally translated to the message of that they wanted to carry out. We are in this democratic country and we are not partakers. We don't take part of the decisions that are being held in this country. Our government is doing their own thing without associating us. So we are here to reclaim our power. And it was their right to do so. But was it a success or a failure? Let's dive into this.
I went to the Baltimore No Kings protest yesterday, and I wanted to say this is exactly what it looks like. There were people of all colors, all shapes, of sizes, all genders there, fighting for our undocumented brothers and sisters. I feel like Maryland is a little bit of an oasis when it comes to Donald Trump's administration. We're a blue state that's not really affected by his larger policies and the larger MAGA cult as a whole, but we have been affected by this stuff with ICE that's going on. Since we saw an increase in the ICE presence in our state, we had to push back on it. Everyone has been doing what they can to push back and help the people that are being affected by this. I know guys that work in construction that are talking about how they're getting different coworkers taken every single day by ICE. I know people that are afraid to go to restaurant jobs as well. And some people are just afraid to leave the house because they don't want to be kidnapped. Maryland is called Little America because there's a little bit of everything here. We're all different. You have deep red counties and you have some deep blue counties as well. But no matter what your political affiliation is, we all stood against ICE yesterday. I'm so proud of everyone in my state for getting out there and making their voices heard, but make no mistake, the fight is far from over.
Trump was busy spending $25 to $45 million of our tax-paying dollar to his military parade. Los Angeles alone had over 30,000 people pull up to the protest, the No Kings protest, and I'm going to show you some clips and some pictures from it. When I saw videos in Washington of there being like barely anybody at Trump's stupid birthday parade, we have LA showing up. Guaranteed you will be seeing this Donald Trump float on the news. There were kids there, elderly people, disabled people, people singing, people dancing. Anyways, I'm not going to show any of that on the news, but it's completely peaceful. There's no violence going on, obviously, and just a few hours ago, the police started tear gassing the protesters. You can literally hear sirens right now. I live in downtown LA, and police just decided, like, none of that, no more. About 40 minutes ago, they announced that the curfew is still in effect in certain areas, and it is affecting my area. I would like some ideas for protest signs, so if you have any pictures of like funny ones or with a good message, drop a picture in the comment. Anyways, stay safe guys, stay vigilant. Mwah.
You didn't. Now I know no one wants to hear one of my back insane love stories, but here goes. In the early 90s and 2000s, I used to go to protests. We were asking for more funding for AIDS research because we were watching our friends die, and we were fighting for marriage equality. Good times! And it's a hard pill to swallow, but my protesting really didn't do anything. It didn't. Not a single act of legislation came out of those protests. You know what helped, though? Conversation. So I watched the protests on the news here in Houston, and all it was an echo chamber in person. People were standing around with their shitty homemade signs, and you had a couple of guest speakers. Oh, and how can I forget the powerful moment the lady was writing love in chalk on the sidewalk. And yet, Trump is still in office and immigrants are still being deported. Remember that cliche about the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result? Maybe constantly playing the victim card in your echo chamber isn't working. Maybe the whole push from some content creators on this app who said to cut off ties with people who voted differently from you is not working either. Just food for thought. Because those protests really didn't cause any change. Conversations with people that were different than me did. I know that's hard, but sometimes adulting sucks. That's all.
Protesting tyranny. If you were to do this in North Korea, if you were to do this in China, what would be the results? You would not be able to do that, matter of fact, because they would not allow it. But here you are using your freedom of speech in America. So the irony is that you have the ability to do this because you live in a free country. All right. So at the end of the day, we will not forget the tyranny under Joe Biden in 20.
We've had the First Amendment since 1789. Are you saying the government hasn't done anything tyrannical since giving us the right to protest? Pick up a history book. Having the right to protest doesn't mean that there's nothing else to protest about. We're protesting against the authoritarian actions of the Trump government. They can't just flip a switch and turn it into full-scale authoritarianism. Trump and the Republicans have been laying the groundwork for over a decade, and we have been fighting every step of the way. Are you trying to say we shouldn't protest unlawful, unconstitutional presidential overreach just because it isn't full-scale tyranny yet? What an anti-American thing to say. Oh, you can't protest against fascism because you're only 60% of the way down the slippery slope to full-scale fascism. Totalitarianism isn't an on-off switch. It is a brawl down a steep embankment into an abyss, and you land every punch you can until you're in the dark. Violent crackdowns on protesters, threatening political opponents, replacing the rank and file with MAGA loyalists, dismantling checks and balances, violating the Emoluments Clause, giving unconstitutional powers to his dark MAGA boyfriend, calling the National Guard to California, deploying troops on American cities, dehumanizing immigrants and establishing them as the enemy, spreading blatant lies about immigrants and Democrats and political opponents, the trampling of the right to due process, detaining citizens and lawful residents, shipping people to a mega prison famous for human rights abuses, disobeying court orders, consolidating power unconstitutionally by ignoring the judicial branch, revocation of birthright citizenship, repeatedly and publicly spreading lies that due process only applies to citizens. And the list goes on and on. We are protesting Trump's authoritarian actions. He fashioned himself a king. He is campaigning for an unconstitutional third term as we speak. Your inability to respond with a valid rebuttal to any of those points and instead complain that we can't criticize and protest against tyranny because we don't live under complete tyranny yet proves, yet again, that MAGA is incapable of critical thinking.
You know, nothing says fight the oligarchy like attending a corporate-sponsored No Kings protest. Also, we celebrate No Kings Day every July 4th. It's called Independence Day, from a king's rule. Listen, I'm happy everybody's using their amendment rights to go out and protest. Good for you all. Still no kings. Great job. That's what I mean when I say that I don't understand what these protests yesterday did. Other than bring like-minded individuals together, didn't really accomplish anything. Honestly, I was driving home through my downtown and had people standing in front of my car refusing to move. I mean, what did that do? If you want to fight something, fight corporations. Fight using your checkbook. Shop local, eat local. Take the money out of the corporation's hands. But don't attend a protest for something to do. A lot of the people, if you're watching them on social media when they get interviewed, don't even have any idea why they're there. When journalists are asking them, like, why are you here? They can't even form sentences. And when they're challenged, they get pissed off and walk away. Again, I don't know what it did yesterday. Yay to everybody for using your amendment rights for free speech. But next time, get a little more organized.
No King's protest was a waste of time. You woke up this morning and Donald Trump is still your president. You made no difference. That's what they want you to think. They want you to quit. They want you to be tired. They want you to be embarrassed. While Donald Trump paraded around our military's power, planes and tanks, like we were supposed to be scared, you showed him the power of the people, the power of protest, and that scared them even more. Because real power does not march in a uniform. It walks the streets. It holds signs. It keeps fighting when no one is watching. Even when the news stops talking, you must still show up. And if one person felt seen, if one person felt brave enough to go to the next one because of what you did yesterday, you have made a difference. And you showed that the American people being united is a force to be reckoned with.
You ever notice the people who protest the most can't even walk a flight of stairs? I used to wonder, like really wonder, why conservatives were so triggered every time liberals did a protest. I mean, think about it. Why does somebody else holding a sign on a sidewalk cause you to break out in a cold sweat? But then it hit me. It's because they don't have the heart or the knees for it. Like, think about it. Outside of January 6th or some Facebook cosplay, conservatives don't show up to do much of anything. Protesting takes something that they don't have. Courage, community, and a functioning lumbar spine. They're ultimately mad because they can't do it. Physically, some of them got gout, sleep apnea, and knees that sound like bubble wrap. Mentally, they're scared. They always talk big, but they always move small. It's one thing to really talk tough behind a keyboard, right? But it's a whole other thing to show up and show out. And to risk something that doesn't come with a coupon or a GoFundMe. So yeah, conservatives hate protests because it reminds them of what they will never be. Brave and disciplined and willing to stand for something that doesn't come with a flag and a gun.
If you saw any of the No King stuff and you still are convinced that nothing's going to happen and that protests don't do anything and nothing changes, I want you to think about something. They keep talking about that 3.5% and people say like, oh, we should just do the adult population, the voting population. Let's just do the 3.5%. We need what, like 12 million people for there to be the 3.5% for the tipping point for social change, all that stuff. If there really were 11 million people out there on Saturday, let's say there was 10. Let's say there was 10 million people. For every one person that was there, there's at least one person at home that couldn't make it. The immigrants who were not safe to go. The other people of color who were not safe to go. People who weren't able to get there, didn't have transportation, didn't have the ability and the resources to be at one. The disabled who couldn't physically handle it. And anybody else who couldn't get out of work, a nurse, somebody who is like very important to their job that can't just call out. All of those people that supported this movement that couldn't physically be there. And then think about if you were at the type of protest that wasn't a march and it was like you were like lining the streets and cars were going by, the amount of honks of support, the amount of cheers and smiles and waves. We're past the tipping point. We are well past the tipping point, and you cannot convince me otherwise. I think change is here, it's coming, and things are going to be moving fast. That's just a feeling. I don't have any proof of that, but that's how I feel. And that's why I still have hope.
Did it happen yet? No. Well, if it's any consolation prize, his parade this weekend was a fucking bust. And I think the entire parade can be summed up by that one clip we've all seen going around with that one tank going down the road. With absolutely zero music going on in the background. Just a sad tank rolling down Pennsylvania Avenue while little Donnie Diapers takes a siesta. Listen, at least in Orlando, we had some salsa music. No, but seriously though, let's just take a moment and simultaneously thank everybody for the largest day of protest in U.S. history. Yes, you heard that correctly. Saturday's No Kings protests all across America became the single largest day of protest in American history. And when you see places like Orlando, where I was, with 10,000 people out there easily in a very red state, I cannot wait for the midterm. But I'm proud of every last one of you because there was no violence, there was no bullshit. In fact, it appears as though at this point in time, the only violence that happened across the protests was against protesters who were there acting peacefully. So girl, when's the next protest? Because I am ready. Well, actually, I have to go to Italy for a week and host a trip first. And then, so make sure I'm like back before the next one. Ooh, maybe it'll happen when I leave this time. We can only hope.
So I just want to share a couple things that happened today at our No Kings protest. This is a rural county, the one I participated in. 66% went to Donald Trump. And there were hundreds of people who showed up, and there weren't even any police there. I mean, there weren't even police there to protect us. There were like no police there. Indivisible had their volunteers helping us cross the roads. We were being very respectful, but there were MAGA folks driving around in their big ass ugly trucks with bullshit mufflers, gunning it, making lots of noise. Just really trashy behavior. But they do what they do, right? The part that was concerning was we were crossing a main road and we had the right of way. And a MAGA supporter came in and just about ran everybody down. They had to hurry up and get out of the way. One really, an older, kind woman, slapped the car really hard. It was just very instinctive because she was just so freaked out. And he opened his window and he said, "Get out of my fucking way." So you know that came from the asshole sheriff down in Florida, that rhetoric. Nobody was hurt, but just more dumbassery, just dumbasses. The part that was really interesting to me was there were MAGA supporters rolling down their window, hurling things, and one went by me, and my fellow Democrats that were marching were like, "Go democracy, go democracy," and I'm like, "Fuck that!" I just like gave the big, like right in his face. You know, he was sitting there laughing while he was saying stuff, but when he saw me hurl the middle finger, he gave this awkward laugh and like just stopped. I don't think they think we're too soft, so they don't expect things like that. We have to do more than just give our middle finger. Like, you guys, we've got to push back. But other than that, it was a nice march. I noticed a lot of people were older and not videotaping, which you're not really having an impact unless guys, older generation, older than me, you guys got to get used to recording stuff and then posting it on whatever social media you're on, which is probably for most folks that were there, Facebook. We got to do this. But yeah, that's what happened.
I was so scared to go to the No Kings protest, and it was all because of social media. I went to the one in New York, and it was people of all ages, all backgrounds, even people I would have assumed were maggots based on appearances. And it was peaceful, it was powerful, and it was such an important reminder that social media never tells a full story. Scrolling can make it feel like the world is falling apart, like there's only hate and division out there. I've gotten so many hate comments, even death threats, when my videos end up on the wrong side of the internet. And yeah, it's scary. It messes with your head. So yes, I was terrified to go. I imagined the absolute worst. I kept replaying the threats, the violent comments, and the fear that comes from being online and speaking up. But even in the rain, even with fear, people showed up. And showing up in person is really hard. It's easy to hate behind a screen. But gathering, being in community, standing up for each other, taking care of one another, actually being nice to people, that's real. That's where the power is.
MAGA only has whataboutisms. That is their entire playbook. And I think it's so funny that she doesn't realize that she's proving our point, because we had millions of people show up yesterday at the No Kings protest calling out Trump's authoritarianism, his power grabs, his dismantling of the Constitution, his attacks on checks and balances, his disregard for judges, his threats to political opponents, his unlawful kidnappings of protesters and immigrants, his open admiration for dictators, all of this. And her only counterpoint is to bring up two people that aren't in office anymore. Does she not understand that this being her only rebuttal to everything we have to say about Trump's tyrannical actions means that it's not a defense of Trump in any way? You're only dodging the issue because you cannot defend him, thus proving us right. No King's Day was about authoritarianism, and you bring up Biden, who stepped aside, something that dictators famously do not want to do. Like, that doesn't make any sense. Could you make the argument that Biden took too long to step down? Yeah, and I actually would agree with that. But you don't have a leg to stand on here, MAGA, because your guy is campaigning for an unconstitutional third term right now. And he has said that he wishes he had generals like Hitler had, and he praises dictators all the time. And Kamala Harris was elected to be the backup to the president, so we were all fine when it. And Kamala Harris was elected to be the backup to the president, so we were all fine with it when she was the backup to the president. Others could have challenged her. They had that option. They chose not to. She still had to secure all of the delegates and go through the party nomination process, which she did. It's not undemocratic for the party to decide to rally around a candidate. They could have challenged her. They just chose not to. Your inability to address what is really going on, Trump's power grabs, his contempt for democracy, his authoritarian leanings, all of this, it just says so much about how weak your position really is.
And here's the kicker. There were no celebrity endorsements, no billionaires funding the message, no single leader telling people what to do. Just pain, just purpose, just people refusing to be silenced. This wasn't just a protest, it was a reckoning. We live in a time where democracy feels like it's unraveling, where strongmen rise while truth stumbles, where power concentrates at the top and gaslights the rest of us into thinking we are powerless. But No King's Day flipped that narrative, because yesterday we remembered power doesn't start at the top. It rises from the bottom, from classrooms, from kitchen tables, from barbershops and bookstores, and the bus stop, and the bodega. People didn't ask for permission to resist. They just showed up. In their hoodies, their hijabs, their Sunday bests, and their protest t-shirts. Black, white, Latino, Asian, Native, queer, trans, working class, middle class, unhoused, overworked, tired, inspired. They came together with one shared truth in their chests. We are not subjects. We are citizens. And this country belongs to us. Let me be clear. This movement isn't about one man. It's about a mindset. The kind that believes democracy is just window dressing for unchecked power. The kind that replaces we the people with me and my people. The kind that clings to control even if it means suppressing votes, banning books, or rewriting history. But yesterday proved something dangerous to those in power. It proved we are paying attention. It proved that a million voices saying no echoes louder than a dictator screaming yes. It proved that while some are trying to build the throne, the rest of us are building bridges. June 14th may never be the same again. And maybe it shouldn't be. Because yesterday, we didn't just resist. We remembered. We remembered that this country wasn't founded by kings. It was founded by rebels. We remembered that freedom isn't a brand. It's a practice. And we remembered that when we stand together, no one man, no one ideology can tear us apart. So what comes next? That's up to us. Because if we can gather 7 million people with nothing but conviction, imagine what we can do with direction. Imagine what we can do with organization, with unity, with love. No King's Day wasn't the end. It was a beginning. A beginning of a people who refused to bow because we were never meant to.
I don't know about you guys, but after yesterday, all I can think about is when is the next protest? Because if we continue to organize in the masses like we accomplished nationwide yesterday, change will come. And it would be incredible to see millions and millions and millions of people continue to show up, continue to organize against this administration and their bullshit.
Are you telling me after everything that we have seen today, in comparison of the two events that took place today, that the contest that was won last fall was won fairly? If you haven't seen footage for either yet, don't worry, I got you. That was from the military parade. Yeah. And now I'm going to show you is what real patriotism in America looks like. Seen. Do you believe that that contest was fairly won now? We've had a gut feeling since the night it was called. And everything that happened today is further proving our point. Do you understand now?
Amazing viewer, I'm glad you've watched to this extent. If you've not liked the video to this extent, kindly like the video for recommendation. This girl brought in an aspect of truth to this compilation, if not missing, left out. Anyway, yeah, she spoke. And also the geese joined the protest, and I saw a comment that was saying that was also a way of Canada showing support to the protest. It wasn't funded. That's what we were told. It wasn't funded. So yeah, it was people exercising their power. I didn't want to bring China into this conversation, but since China has to be mentioned always somewhere, okay, if it was in China, you couldn't have marched, you couldn't have done this and that. You are exercising your freedom here. Yes, freedom, because that's your system of governance. That's how your country works. People have the freedom. And protest is their right, you know. That's why they went out there and protested. They have the freedom of expressing themselves, you know. And that's what you guys always boast about. So what's your pride? Again, if you're not able to call out what is wrong, you know. So let me speak on behalf of some Chinese right here. You know, most of the time when I drop videos about politics concerning America here, Chinese point is always like, we wish that Americans could drop these differences, these Democrats, Republicans, I don't know, conservative and whatever, liberals, and just do people's power, hold their government accountable for everything that they do, because at the end of the day, they all want one thing: affordable life. They all want to live at peace. They all want the same thing. Why can't they drop all these differences and unite and just exercise what they call people's power? And when I read that from let me say in brackets, communists, China, I feel like they went to the same school as I did, where we spoke of a democracy being the power of the people, by the people, for the people. And I'm surprised that they have a better understanding of democracy than some of us who are supposed to be exercising the said democracy. What a pity. Anyway, that was it about this compilation. Thank you so much for being here. To those who didn't protest responsibly, I know there are always some people who do stuff, yeah, on protests. It's also part of the cons of protest, you know. It's often due to the fact that there are people who can't afford food, and they take that opportunity to grab what isn't theirs, to rob, yeah, to do things that aren't right. They take advantage of such manifestation to do what they want to do. But protest on its own, it's a legal right for citizens to do, but done responsibly. Thank you so much for being here. Like, subscribe, share your thoughts in the comment section, and let's have an interaction. Goodbye for now. I appreciate you. Thank you for being here.